Hello everyone and welcome to my talk on DOI, Beyond the Basics. So let's first start with the basics. So you might have heard of DOI, but to quickly recap, it stands for Digital Object Identifier. It's a global system for assigning permanent and unique identifiers to a lot of things. It's used for documents, but also other things. As an example, you can write DOIs in these formats. You can write it as a URN or as a URL. And of course, the identifier itself, it's not so useful, but you also associate metadata with it. So as an example, here we have a DOI. It references one specific paper and only this one. You might have seen it already. And the DOI has a structure, so it has a prefix and it has a suffix. And though this is important because it provides sharding for the whole system and also ensures uniqueness across the whole system, and we'll see later how these parts are actually being created. And to also show you how big kind of DOI currently is, there are around 400 million DOIs in existence and around 170,000 DOI prefixes, and there are around 2 billion DOI resolutions per month. I've checked the data yesterday, and on average 900 resolutions per second are being performed. And this data actually has a DOI. You can look it up. It has this DOI, and there you have just a JSON where you can see all this data. And now kind of I thought about actually how are DOIs created? How much does creation of a DOI cost? Why do they always start with 10? What software do they actually use to run the system? And also looked at some special or unusual applications of the DOI and how DOI relate to other IDs. So let's start with it. So I started to look into it, and the system, it's built on specifications, and these are a couple of the specifications used. An ISO standard, there's a whole handbook on DOI. There are also RFCs and an ITUT recommendation, but those have been phased out in favor of more recent standards that kind of replace it. Those are the newest versions. And to kind of achieve the scale, I think there are 3 parts to it. There is on the one hand the software that they use. On the other hand, there is the protocols that they use, and of course these aspects are connected. And lastly, there's the bureaucracy behind it, how it's administered, how the DOIs are assigned, and kind of organizations in the background doing a lot of work. These parts, like I said, they're of course all connected and kind of influence each other. So let's first start with what forms the foundation for the whole system, and this is the so-called handle system. It's a more general system than just DOI, and within the handle system, DOIs are embedded. The handle system just provides the resolution protocol for DOIs to URLs. There are other prefixes within the system, but for DOI within the handle system, this prefix 10 has been assigned to the whole of DOI, basically. And the DOIs are handles within the system. And like I said, there are other prefixes. Some development on the handle system started in the 1990s, and one of the developers behind it was Bob Kahn, who you might know because he is often called fathers of the internet because he worked a lot on TCP and IP. And the handle system just associates handles, which are just identifiers, with records. The system has defined multiple standard record types that are used to run the system, to administer it, and to give to users. And the citation metadata is often not stored in the handle system directly, but over another protocol. So let's quickly dive into the protocol. So important step for the whole system is how to resolve DOIs, how to resolve handles. And we have an example of this DOI. And the way it works is you first need to find out where the data of it is stored. And it's stored at the LIS. That's the local identifier service. They have the data about the specific DOI. But you don't know beforehand where the LIS is located. And so you first need to find that out. And how you do that is by going to the global handle registry. They have the data about where all the LISs are located. And you don't give them directly the DOI you're interested in, but rather so-called prefix identifier. It has this format, and Then the global handle registry returns you the data. It contains the actual IP address on where the LIS is located. And then you go to the LIS, you tell them the stuff you're interested in, and they give you back the URL, for example, or other data. If you look closely, you see this is actually an identifier in itself. And also this HS_site is a special handle record used to point you to another identifier where the IP address is stored. And so kind of the whole handle system is used as some kind of distributed key value store, and you see all these handles are connected. And you have to apply the whole resolution protocol recursively, but there's a root of the whole system. It's located at this identifier. The data that's stored at this identifier needs to be known by clients beforehand, so they actually know where the global handle registry is located at. And now let's talk a bit about the bureaucracy behind it. There is the International DOI Foundation. They are kind of at the top of the DOI system. They lead the DOI, they own the DOI trademark, they coordinate, they do standardization, and kind of below the DOI Foundation are registration authorities. There are 12 of them, and Crossref is one of the important ones, if you heard about them, or DataSite. They are pretty big. And the registration authorities actually run the LIS. And you can look all the accredited registration authorities up on this link, and kind of below these registration authorities, there are the assigners, and they are actually in charge of providing DOIs. And the handle system also has stakeholders, but it's bigger. So at the top of it, there is the DONA, which is an international foundation founded in 2014, based in Geneva. And they also do similar aspects like the DOI Foundation, but for the whole system. And below kind of the DONA, there are so-called multi-primary administrators, and they together run the global handle registry. And there are a couple of them, there are 9 of them. For example, the International DOI Foundation is one of them, and these multi-primary administrators have been assigned prefixes, and the IDF just has been assigned 10. There's another organization called the CRNI. It's the Corporation for National Research Initiatives. It's a US-based organization that does the original initiative behind the handle system, and they also developed the software that is used to run it and provide a lot of other services. And another organization I want to point out is the GWDG. It's a German-based organization based in Göttingen, and they run also one of these multi-primary administrators. The assignment of DOI, to look into that, so the assigners are given DOI prefixes. They just register with one of the registration authorities, then they are assigned a prefix, and then they have some way of deciding DOI suffixes for their publications. They might just randomly make them up, or they have another system, and then they go to their registration authority. They tell them, these are the DOIs, please store them for me and serve them to the users, and the registration authority does it. And the assigners, they don't run the software themselves, but the registration authority does it, and the assigners pay for it. Now let's look at the software that is used. It is just called handle.net software. It's a Java reference implementation of a handle system server. It is a backend for administrating handles and prefixes, and also to serve the data to the users. It's around this big. It has around 62,000 lines of code spread across 460 files, and it has built-in replication support, as you would expect. And also for DOI, it turned out that the database scale, it couldn't scale enough, so DOI uses a custom implementation of the database backend. This is what the software looks like. It has an HTTP interface. It's just an HTTP form. You can enter in handles, and then you can look at the technical data behind it. This is, for example, what it looks like. There are multiple record types. For example, URL, it's just the landing page of the ACM, and a couple of other technical identifiers. But that's also really about it. There are another technical aspects of the whole software. Besides the HTTP interface, they also have a custom protocol. It runs on this port, and they also employ a custom public key infrastructure to secure it all to provide authentication for the system. They use RSA and DSA signatures encoded in JWTs, pretty standard stuff. But it's kind of a custom PKI, not compatible with others. And the root of trust is stored at this identifier. You can look up this identifier and you will find a self-signed certificate which provides the root. Oftentimes, the HTTP certificates shown on the web interface are completely invalid. They show you like completely wrong stuff, like thousands of years of lifetimes and completely wrong issuers and subjects, but kind of they make the argument it's still secure because they have their own built-in signing and PKI. Still, it might be a problem regarding confidentiality. DOI extends the handle system. It's not just the standard handle system, but DOI makes sure that the DOIs are more they have better longevity than standard handles, and they do that on one hand by requiring that DOIs must be stored at multiple registration authorities. When you sign up to be an assigner, you have to make arrangement with multiple registration authorities, so in case one fails, you have a backup, and also the whole system can work with the IDF failing. It's not required for it to work. They do some standardization to improve the consistency, what's related to the metadata. The DOI Foundation also provides support, and they also standardize to improve interoperability. The metadata resolution, so citation metadata, if you're interested in that, is not directly done in the handle system, but rather as a service offered by the registration authorities, potentially also as a value-added service. And for example, Crossref and DataSite, they offer APIs to look up the data. So you can just go there, enter a DOI that they provided, and they will give you the metadata. Of course, the quality of the metadata can be debated. Crossref, like I said, it's one of the important registration authorities. Crossref is actually the largest, and kind of all these questions we had, how do they scale the system, translates now, how does Crossref run such a big instance of the whole system? And they provide some insight into that. They recently moved to the cloud. The cloud does it for them. They previously had dedicated servers themselves, but they decided it's not worth it. And they expect higher costs associated with it, up to 5 times than what they built previously. And they calculate it might be up to $2 million yearly. Also, it gives you some insight. They migrated from an Oracle database to Postgres. And what they also do is that they provide clustering for the software, so you have some redundancies. And Crossref, it's a membership-based organization. Big publishers can go there and request to be a member. And Crossref also does kind of quality control on it. They provide reports on a lot of stuff. For example, they do DOI crawling. They regularly just determine random DOIs, and then they test if they are still working, if the links behind it are still there. And they found about 3% link rot. So 3% of the links are failing in some form. They also provide a participation report, which is pretty interesting. You can go there and look at how good the quality of data is for some organization. Also, what is interesting, all the data that they have, they regularly bundle it up and you can just download it. And they did this recently in March. You can just download a 200 gigabyte file, and it's all the data that Crossref has. And they also provide some tooling. They just develop applications on top of it. Console, for example, to administer the DOIs, and Manifold is an application that runs some of the APIs that they use, and they also provide a lot of documentation, and they're pretty transparent about their processes. Further, let's look at some of the economics of it. So the registration authorities, they don't do it for free. You have to pay them to get their service. And just 2 examples. It's kind of how much they charge depends on like what exactly you're registering. But Crossref, they charge $1, for example, for conference papers or journals. And additionally, you have to pay a membership fee. That depends on how much revenue you do. And data side also have a pretty similar setup. You have to pay a membership fee. That's just 2k euros plus an additional organization fee, and then plus a service fee. And how much service fee you have to pay depends on how big you are. It's tiered per DOI volume, and the lowest tier, so when you have the fewest DOIs, it's also the most expensive one per DOI, costs 80 cents per DOI. HTTP is also pretty interesting. You might have seen that. You can just write DOIs as links. And how it works is DOI.org is just a proxy server. They act as a HTTP server and as a DOI IRP client. You give them the DOI within the URL, and then they resolve the DOI, and then they give you back the result as an HTTP forward. And the same is true for Handle, and it also offers a REST API, so you can look a bit more at the technical stuff. Another interesting application is short DOI. It's just like a link shortener, but for DOI. You give them a DOI, and they make sure that each DOI gets the same short DOI. And as an example, a short DOI is just 10/ and then some short letters. This is run by the IDF themselves. And the short DOIs aren't actually DOIs themselves, but they are handles, and they are respected by the DOI resolver. If you look at the technical stuff behind it, it's just implemented as an alias within the handle system. Also, I found it pretty funny. So you might have known OIDs, object identifiers. It's another system for assigning numbers to naming things, basically. And if you have a DOI prefix, and not a DOI prefix, but an OID prefix, you can create suffixes however you desire. And there is an organization that offers their DOI prefix to kind of assign OIDs to assigners that are identified within DOI. How it works is you just take their OID prefix and then you concatenate the DOI prefix with it, and then you have an OID of the assigner. Pretty funny. I thought so. Another application is RFC to DOI. So the RFC editor has obtained a DOI prefix. It's this one from Crossref, and they defined an RFC on how they assign DOIs to their RFCs. This is the format that they've chosen. And also, what is interesting, this isn't a standard stream RFC, but rather in the IAB stream, so the Internet Architecture Board. And if you might know that, the Internet Architecture Board's predecessor was funded by WinSurf, who was kind of the other father of TCP/IP. Another interesting application is how DOIs relate to ISBN. So you know ISBN, it's just 10-letter or 10-digit codes for books or other types, generally books. And there was once a move from ISB 10 to ISB 13 because they kind of embedded ISBN into the bigger system of GS1, which is used for, or GS1 is generally a system of standards, but they particularly do barcodes. And what they did is the codes are kind of assigned per country. And for example, they have specific prefixes for all the countries, but they decided for ISBN, just the whole of ISBN gets assigned one country code, and it's just kind of called Bookland. And there is a way to convert ISBNs to DOI, and it uses that these country codes are kind of unique. So you have the 10 prefix, and then you do the Bookland, and then this first part identifies kind of the publisher, and the second part the actual title, and then you can just convert it pretty simply. But it isn't automatically registered as a DOI. A DOI registration authority must register it, and DOI Foundation also says that the DOI organization that registers it must be an ISBN registration authority. So kind of these two parts are always connected. Also, another interesting thing is if you want to have DOIs for your blog posts, it's totally possible. There's an organization called Rogue Scholar. They basically offer this. They you can just go there. They have a form. You enter your data, and then they assign DOIs to your blog posts. The blogs must be science-related, scholarly, basically. And what they also do is that they provide an archive of your blog posts, and they provide full-text search. But I think it's pretty good that they do it. Also, some other funny applications I found is the Entertainment ID Registration Association. So they do DOIs for a lot of entertainment media. They assign DOIs to kind of movies. They do it for whole series. They do it for episodes of series. They do it for the whole series. I just put some examples. The Barbie movie has a DOI, but they also do it for organization, like Warner Bros. Has just one DOI. And if you look at their pricing, their lowest tier starts at a revenue of 100 million USD, and it goes up to billions. So they are more focused on entertainment industry. And another thing is human and digital. They go even further. They assign DOIs to people. They assign DOIs to actors. They assign them to fictional characters. I just put up some examples, and you can actually look up these DOIs and find metadata about the actor, when they were born, and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. The website of them is written on the slide. Another thing is that there are kind of fake DOIs out there. So kind of you need to separate. They are just DOI-like strings, which look like a DOI. They start with 10, they have a slash, but they aren't actually registered in the whole system. They are bogus organizations that pose as legit DOI agencies, but they are not. They're basically a fraud, a scam. And they say they sell you DOIs, but they actually don't do it. And kind of there's another problem related to it. The ACM, they sometimes import publications from other publishers. You find papers, for example, at IEEE and at ACM. And what the ACM does is when they import them, they assign them also a DOI-like string, which looks like 10.4 times 5. But they don't actually register any of these DOIs. And you find papers that reference one of these DOIs, but they aren't actually legit DOIs. And as it turns out, 10.555 is just Crossref's testing prefix, so it should not be used in production, and don't make the mistake of citing DOIs with that format. They usually have another one, actual DOI. So if you want to go further, if you want to know more about the whole system, I put up some links. The Crossref engineering blog is pretty interesting. Also the normal Crossref blog is pretty interesting. You can just run the whole Handle.net software in your home lab if you're interested in that, or look up some more technical aspects on how the system functions. So thank you. Yeah, that's about it. I can show you how to look up a DOI per hand, or we can just ask me other questions. Hope so. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it's a good idea that public institutions like unis financing this scheme, this foundation?
Yes, of course. It provides a lot of...
you have a 200 gigabyte key value store for 2 million euros per year?
Not 2 million. Yeah, it's 2 million. Yeah, true. Up to 2 million. But of course, okay, you might say it's not that big of a system. or what's the point?
Yeah, it's kind of expensive to host a CSV file or something like that.
Yeah, it still offers like the whole redundancy, and it's distributed across multiple organizations. And
okay. What happens when one entity disappears and stops paying for their fees? Are those DOIs still stored, or are they being deleted after some time?
They are not deleted. There are still ways to get the DOIs.
So it's a one-time fee.
It depends. It depends a bit. For some organization, yeah, it's a one-time fee. Some organizations do it a bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, you showed a pretty complex resolution method in the beginning. Do you know why they didn't decide to just use URLs for that purpose? So they would probably make resolution a lot easier. So is there any specific reason why they didn't do it?
It is different to URLs because the LISs are distributed, so it can be it has kind of built-in sharding. You could think of it that way, because you know where the prefix basically is hosted, and then you just go there.
But you could do the 302 redirect to the LIS, and which redirects you to the resource.
Yeah, they could have done that, but still they have potentially caching, which might reduce the load on the GHR.
Okay. Do those links link to the document, like deep linking, or does it link to the general ACM page where you can probably click on a PDF link or something?
Yeah, it's recommended that it just links to the landing page where there's another link to the document. But there are ways to encode XML within the data that's stored in the handle system, and then in the XML you can define more granular lookup schemes. For example, you could do stuff like, the document is here, but the landing page is here, or you could do stuff like if the visitor comes from Great Britain, then it goes to another publisher's page, or stuff like that. Yeah.
Is there some tool which recognizes the strings and can tell me what kind of string that is?
General handle strings.
Just a tool where I can put in some kind of identifier, and it tells me, okay, that's an ISBN, that's a DOI, that's an Odin something, and then helps me to decode that.
I haven't seen something like that. I don't know of any tool that does it. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that movies sometimes get DOIs.
Yes.
Who pays for that?
The studios, basically, is the short answer. But actually, you are a member of the. If you want to look up my sources, there's a link to my blog, and there are just all the sources listed. But you are kind of the EIDR is a membership-based organization, and big studios, for example, are members of it, and then they pay a membership fee. But actually, then you don't have EIDR's pricing. It's just that you can register unlimited DOIs if you're a member.
Okay, and why would Warner Brothers want to register all of their movies?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I looked into it, but it's like the stuff is used in, like, for example, enterprise-grade catalog managing software. There's software, if you have a lot of movies that you somehow have, you host them or whatever, your Netflix, and there's like special enterprise-grade software where you can manage all the series that you have and stuff like that. And for these types of applications, EIDR is used to uniquely identify movies.
Licensing and billing and
yeah, basically.
IP.
Yeah.
I see. So then that's also the reason why Bruce Willis has a...
I assume,
okay.
but I don't know if there's like really specific stuff on that. I don't think Bruce Willis really needs that. He can just say, yeah, I'm Bruce Willis. But maybe for other actors, it might be more relevant.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and it has metadata. You can look up stuff on Bruce Willis. Yeah, hope you learned something. Hope it wasn't too much. Thank you.